one day, probably back late 2017, early 2018, that Alan Toms, who ran State Bank's SBA division, now runs that for Cadence, called me and asked if I would be willing to meet with a friend of his from church who's running for lieutenant governor. Well, I think very highly of Alan and take his recommendation seriously, and I agreed. It also didn't hurt that Alan told me that Geoff Duncan went to Georgia Tech. Geoff and I spent nearly 2 hours together that day. And for people who know me, the fact that I spent more than 15 minutes with a prospective office seeker on the first visit said something special was going on. Well, most of you know that Geoff came to Texas baseball pitcher, pitched Tech to the College World Series, got drafted by the Marlins, married his high school sweetheart, Brooke, who also happens to be a Georgia Tech graduate with a higher GPA. He spent 6 years in the minor leagues with the Marlins before a shoulder injury sidelined his baseball career. Geoff subsequently became a successful entrepreneur, and as he conveyed to me, felt led by faith to public service. He successfully ran for the Georgia House in 2012, and then was subsequently elected lieutenant governor in 2018 by the skin of his teeth. Now, I'm not going to wear you out with his legislative accomplishments, although to me they're significant. He's been very active in health care and economic development issues. But as I think most of today's challenges need leadership more than they need legislation, I'm going to spend the rest of the time that I have allotted sharing some things that I've observed about Geoff Duncan, the man, instead of Geoff Duncan, the politician. First, I think Geoff views his most important constituents as being his wife, Brooke, and his 3 boys. And he knows that whatever he does or says publicly, he'll have to answer to them around the dinner table. When Geoff speaks of being led by faith in public service, I think he means following that simple yet divine command to love our neighbor and to define our neighbor in very broad terms. While Geoff's a philosophical conservative, he's also a Georgia Tech trained problem solver who doesn't profess to have all the answers, and I very much admire his willingness to reach across the aisle to listen and seek common ground. From the onset of our relationship, I've held his integrity and his backbone in high esteem. And I think he showed those colors brilliantly after the November elections when asked by a very influential voice in his party to do something that Geoff didn't think was right. That Geoff Duncan stood up and said no. I'm proud of him. Fellow Rotarians and guests, it's my privilege and honor to introduce to you our Lieutenant Governor and my friend, Geoff Duncan.
Thank you, Joe. It absolutely never gets old hearing you say nice things about me. I hope everybody in this room knows the Joe Evans that I know. He's an amazing individual, and he does so many great things for us on the political side, introduces us to people literally all over the country that can help us politically. But the most important trait you have is the gift of wisdom. And I'm certain there's people all across this room that have been able to experience that wisdom in their lives, both personally and professionally. And I cannot thank you enough for being able to speak that wisdom into my life. It's so hard to believe that I'm already in my 3rd year of being the lieutenant governor. I spend so much time campaigning to be the lieutenant governor, and now we're already 3 years into the term. But really what catches my breath is the number of once-in-a-generation issues that have come across our desk in those 3 years in this role. And certainly the global pandemic, wow. We're still in the throes of trying to figure out how to navigate it, but certainly I would believe that to be a once-in-a-generation event that we've had to deal with the disruptions. A whipsawing economy that was roaring, and then in a matter of hours it seemed to turn off and head for the basement and recovers in a way that's hard to calculate and hard to understand. Racial tensions and riots that have disrupted communities all over this country, but specifically right here in our home city. And a post-election disaster that certainly has disrupted and created chaos that, in my opinion, was unnecessary. We continue to deal with all of those issues, and they continue to be an influence in the way we make our decisions. But a new issue that continues to pop up that is affecting all of our lives, and all of our businesses, and all of our communities is crime. Crime is quickly becoming an issue that is hard to operate your business or your family or to make decisions. I spent this weekend here in the city of Atlanta with my wife as her plus one, as she called me. It was at her company's convention. And it was just unbelievable to see the quietness in this city, the lack of activity, the homelessness, and the things that we need to start to tackle and understand. But crime is something that, in my opinion, has been politicized way too much. I'm wired to be a problem solver. I got into politics because I wanted to put policy over politics. I wanted to solve problems, and as I look at the crime issue, we need real answers for real problems. And so last week I launched a big initiative, and some would say it was too big. I argue that it's too small. A $250 million tax credit that empowers corporations and citizens to write checks directly to their local law enforcement agencies. And in return, you get a dollar-for-dollar tax credit, just like the rural health care bill that we passed a number of years ago that I'm sure many of you participate in for tax purposes, and to most importantly help a rural hospital. In return, these law enforcement agencies get to spend those dollars in 3 ways. They get to pay their officers more, they get to hire more officers, and they get to train them even better. And to me, that's a bipartisan solution to a bipartisan problem. Crime affects Democrats and Republicans equally. It's ideas like this that really allow us to try to move forward and to try to change the trajectory. Both political sides are guilty of trying to politicize every single issue. But you as business owners, you as community volunteers, you as community advocates, you as parents want solutions to real problems. You know, when I came into the Senate, I initially ran for the job because I wanted to put policy over politics, because I really understood the value of getting the policy right. I was one of those people at the Capitol that thought if you get the policy right, then it makes the politics easy. But for some reason, folks in elected office, too many of them, think that you got to get the politics right to then get the policies right. And to me, that creates divides, it doesn't create solutions. And so once being elected in the Senate, or as Lieutenant Governor, being able to be the President of the Senate, I worked hard to create a culture inside the Senate. And one of the first opportunities I had to address our senators, both Democrats and Republicans, I told them that honesty was the currency I wanted to exchange. I wanted to be honest with them, and I wanted them to be honest with me. I'm grateful for that honesty and that culture that we built in the Senate. And I think back to the last 3 sessions, the amazing work that we as a team have done, bipartisan team, and tackled extremely difficult issues, extremely divisive issues, like passing hate crimes legislation. We were able to work in a bipartisan format, and I've created lifelong friendships on the other side of the aisle because we were able to work together. Because we were able to look each other in the eyes and understand that we had each other's best interest in heart and in mind to solve a big problem. I'm proud of the nearly 50 bipartisan health care bills that we passed in the Georgia Senate and in the Georgia House and the governor signed. These are big, important issues that, folks, when you go to your mailbox and you have a premium payment due, or you can't find a doctor, you don't care if a Democrat or Republican's in charge, you want a problem solved. I'm grateful for the support of the governor and so many folks to allow us to pass these bipartisan health care bills. And in the midst of COVID, we were able to work together in a bipartisan format to come up with COVID liability protection so that businesses wouldn't be sued out of business because of frivolous claims of COVID. If they're following state, local, and federal laws, they should not lose their business or lose the ability to keep their business open. It's this type of mindset that really drove me in the direction to think of a new direction forward, a new way to focus our energy and efforts towards solving problems. And so many of you have heard me talk about a GOP 2.0. It's just a new mindset. It's not a new party. It's just a better direction forward. And if done right, in my opinion, a GOP 2.0 will make both parties even better. This isn't about winning elections. This is about creating a movement that allows us to start to focus in on real problems for real people. Now, I announced a few months ago, so this isn't breaking news. Don't run to your Twitter accounts. I'm not running again for re-election. And it's not because I don't like the job. It's not because I don't think my team has been very successful in trying to help shape the policy direction of this great state. It's because I feel like there's an opportunity to focus my skill set and my perspective in an even better direction. To try to help heal and rebuild the party that I'm a part of. Not just here in Georgia, but all over the country. Because I think right here, right now, we need it. I've got this book coming out in September, and this isn't a plug for the book. But I've got a book coming out in September, and as I was putting these notes together, I wanted to tell you a story that I put in the book. And I've never written a book before, and it's a very cumbersome process, but it was one that I absolutely enjoyed. And my wife saw me the other day writing notes down on a piece of paper. She said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm writing notes for my next book." And she's like, "Oh, God, here we go again." But I'm excited about it. There's a story I told in the book, and I didn't start this process off wanting to tell cheesy baseball stories, because none of mine are, I didn't win the World Series, and I didn't do anything on TV, or my baseball card was worth, I think it's up to 8 cents. But baseball shaped so much of my perspective. Just like many of you growing up, your first job didn't buy your house, but it helped you figure out how to buy your first house, or why it was important to buy your first house. So here's a cheesy little baseball story. There's a guy named John Oliver. I don't know if any baseball fans here know that in 1999, I got a call early in the morning to go show up at the big league stadium in spring training for the Marlins. And so my heart was beating. I was excited. I was like, here's my moment. And so I show up to the big league stadium for spring training, and I started the game. I walked in the clubhouse, and I had my equipment bag over my shoulder. And I walked in, I felt like the bat boy. I mean, I had half these guys' baseball cards in a shoebox under my bedstead. And so I finally get out in the field and play catch and watch the game, and I'm down in the bullpen, and the phone rings and it says, "Hey, get Duncan ready." So we're playing the Mets, and I come in the game, and my heart's pounding a million miles an hour, but there was, I knew this was the right place at the right time for Geoff Duncan to be. And so I'm sure it was going to go exactly the way I dreamed about it. I was going to strike out 3 guys in a row and roll into high fives. So the first guy comes up, the first pitch I throw, he hits a C to right field. Base hit. All right, that's beginner's luck, no big deal. Next guy comes up, it might have been the first or second pitch I throw. The guy hits an absolute laser to right field again. I thought, all right, I got to be a little better at this. And the next guy I walk. So I got bases loaded, no outs, exactly like I dreamed about it my entire life. I thought my knees were knocking when I got out there. I mean, they were. I'm sure people in the stands could see my knees knock. So I hear the announcer come on, and he says, "Now batting, the first baseman, John Oliver." John Oliver was 6'6", 250 pounds, and he was runner-up in the batting title in 1998. This guy was a professional hitter on all extremes. So he gets in the box, and I get him 3-2. Fastballs and sliders, and get him to 3-2. And all of a sudden, the catcher calls timeout, and he comes running out to the mound, and he says, "Hey, by the way, can you throw a 3-2 changeup?" I said, "Yeah, I guess I can." He goes, "Great." I said, "Why?" He goes, "Because if you throw a fastball, it's going to take your head off." And so sure enough, I got the sign, I threw a changeup. He was just a 1 inch out front on his front foot. He pops it up to the shortstop, catches it 1 out. Next guy comes up, ground ball, double play, hitting him. I thought that story for me was about that moment in time. I thought it was about getting out of that inning, and it was about baseball. That story has taught me about being prepared to throw the right pitch at the right time. You've got to be prepared. You've got to have the skill sets to deliver the pitch, but you also have to have the courage to do it. And to me, that's where I started with GOP 2.0. This is about an effort that helps us heal and rebuild the process. I have this acronym called PET, P-E-T. I call it my pet project. My wife says you should have done better, but it's my pet project. It's policy, empathy, and tone. I want to steer the conversation back to where I think a majority of people in America want it. To talk about honing policies that help you run your business and help you raise your family and help you keep your streets safe. I want to be empathetic more than 2 weeks before an election to run the right ads with the right people. I want to sit down at that kitchen table with that single mom with 2 jobs and 3 kids and ask her what her challenges are instead of telling her that she should vote for us. And I want to do all of that with a better tone. I want to speak a tone that we speak at our boardrooms and at our kitchen tables and in our churches and in our streets and on our ball fields. I get it. It's a long shot. I've been an underdog my entire life, and I absolutely despise it. But what I've learned to realize is I'm good at doing it. This is a challenge worth chasing. It's going to take time as a country to heal. It's going to take time to refocus our energy. It's going to take time to stop our addiction to 10-second sound bites and mean tweets. But if we're going to truly be the nation that our founding fathers expected us to be, we've got to rise to the occasion. We've got to answer the call. We've got to stop worrying about partisan corners and start focusing our efforts on solutions as we move forward. In the spirit of GOP 2.0, I want to talk about the pandemic for a moment. So much energy and effort is focused on masks and lockdowns and mandates. We are currently facing a significant increase in cases. We all can see the data now. We understand the metrics of the last 15, 18 months of what's coming our way. Certainly there's an increase in cases. So I think we all know the solution to this is vaccines. Right? The vaccine is a new tool in our hands to help protect us against this. When we talk about mandates and everything else, let's put away this partisan bickering match around masks and lockdowns, and let's all go focus on the solution. Trying to get folks vaccinated. Interesting conversation happened over the weekend, just a few blocks from here, with one of my wife's friends. She quietly told me, she said, "I'm not vaccinated. I have a couple of questions. I just have a couple of questions." And she said, everybody keeps telling me to go talk to my healthcare provider. Well, how do you pick up the phone and call your healthcare provider? She was right. I think there's millions of Americans that are one question away from getting vaccinated. We ought to lock hands as CEOs and businesses and sports heroes and actors and large corporations, and we need to band together and figure out, and let's do it here in Georgia, how to answer folks' questions and not embarrass them into getting vaccines, but get those 1 or 2 questions answered to help them get vaccinated, to allow us to be able to keep our businesses open, to keep our schools open, to keep our streets safe. This is our opportunity here in Georgia to be different, to not fall into the trappings of the outside 5% that want us to get into a fist fight. But I see this as an opportunity to work together. So as you listen to me message in the coming weeks and months, I'm going to spend my time trying to inform everybody, looking for opportunities to answer those questions, to partner with pharmaceuticals and businesses as we move forward. Because for me, this is a bipartisan problem that needs a bipartisan solution. I think we have an opportunity here in Georgia to lead by example, to stop being in the spotlight for negative reasons. I want to be in the spotlight because of positive reasons. And I think a room like this, it resonates. So I encourage you to go back to whatever your sphere of influence is and look for opportunities to encourage those folks to get vaccinated. In closing, whether you like this or not, I'm a lieutenant governor for 17 more months. Probably divides the room in half. But I want to continue to focus and gain great momentum on the big issues that we've talked about and we've been able to move forward on. We're going to tackle crime in a bipartisan way. We're going to build coalitions with folks. We're going to try to find the real problems, not the politically popular angles, but try to find real solutions. I think of what we've done with foster care. I think of all of the big efforts and the increased tax credits that we were able to pass this year. I think of all of the harnessing the power of the 4 C's. Right? I talk about churches and charities and corporations and citizens being the front lines of defense against poverty and all the issues that circle poverty. I think we've got an opportunity to make a big difference. And last but not least, the technology capital of the East Coast is alive and well. This whole big idea that started on the campaign trail and then became materialized because people reached out to us and believed us that we could become the technology capital of the East Coast. Partners in the room that helped us be able to facilitate an idea to now become Partnership for Inclusive Innovation. This is real. Every business in the 21st century is a technology company, and we want to make sure that they have a safe place to call home here in Georgia. We want to make sure that they're able to grow their businesses and our next generation is able to educate themselves here and to be a part of the 21st global economy. It's an honor to be your Lieutenant Governor. I promise you I'm going to work hard. I'm going to run through the finish line in my term, and then I'm going to continue to work hard to represent as many Americans as I possibly can to be able to make sure this country can achieve its dreams. Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
We have time for a few questions. You can either shout it
If
out.
I did this right, I was going to leave time for one question.
You can either shout it out from where you are, or we have a microphone down front if that's easier.
Right here.
RK, yes.
You know, you are a rare politician. What can we do for you to help change your mind, stay in politics?
Yes. Look, I'm not running for politics. I'm just looking for a better opportunity to aim my skill set, right? Look, I hope that one day this creates an opportunity to run for office again. I love being in elected office. But right now, the challenge is too big for me to turn my eyes, and I think there's an opportunity for us to help heal and rebuild this process.
Thank you.
Senator Governor, thank you for your time today.
You focus a lot on technology, and I think you actually ran a technology company. So thank you for being supportive of the tech community. What are some things you think we need to be doing in Georgia to further the growth of technology, in particular bringing capital to the state to help to fuel the growth of those companies?
Yeah, I think it's an important opportunity for us to focus. It's an ecosystem. Capital doesn't chase a lottery ticket. They chase the safest bet as possible. We got to continue to make sure our K-12 system is digitally ready. We got to make sure that we've got a technical program that continues to weave itself into communities all over the state. Making sure our four-year programs are producing the talent necessary and keep them here. Making sure that the business climate is inviting with regulations and tax policies. All of that will be a safe place to call home for capital as it continues to flow in. But we want to make sure our biggest thinkers, our biggest ideas, our most investable ideas stay here. What we don't want to see is leakage of 5-person startups that are going to end up being billion-dollar unicorns chase a $5 billion check on the West Coast or in the Northeast or in Texas. We want to make sure that they feel comfortable staying here and growing here. And to me, that's the best place for capital to come and stay.
The question from Miller?
Mr. Governor, thank you for the great lecture. 2.0, is there a source that you can go to? Because I know a lot of people are very, very enthused about supporting this program. A lot of people feel like they're individual without a party. So, what's the source of this sort of website?
Thanks for the question. GOP2.org is our website, just as a basic piece of information. It's a 501c4, and that's for intentional purposes. And this is not about a book. This is not about an organization. This is about a movement. And so we're creating. This is much like a startup, right? Seed capital and friends and family to start with. But this is about a movement, and certainly there's more information at GOP2.org. Great to see you.
Got one more question.
This is always the dangerous one. Somebody's been waiting their whole life.
Jeff, down here.
Go there, I think I can check. How can we make better use of our diversity receiving club and beyond the typical library? We have more and more Islamic people in the club, Buddhist people in the club, Jewish people in the club, as well as, I think, the vast majority of Georgia's probably Asian Americans. Since you're a solution oriented, how can we make better use of projectors?
Well, for me, as I build organizations in the private sector and also in the public sector, the greatest gift of inclusivity to me is perspective. It adds perspective to your operation, to your vision, to your project. And so I think making sure that those voices are not just entered in as members of, but truly including them into the decision-making and the thought process and allowing them to be part of the idea. Because that's really genuinely where I believe inclusivity takes hold. And it becomes not just fractional elements, but it becomes a long-term relationship. And for me, when communities feel dovetailed into the overall project, that's really the want. They want to be engaged, and they want to feel like their voice is heard. And so we've all run organizations where when that magic happens, when that person's at your boardroom table that's able to offer up a story or perspective or an angle that makes the overall organization better and stronger, that's where the magic happens. And I think a group like this is the same way, gaining that community perspective. And it's never been more important than now to be inclusive. It's never been more important now to let any sort of preconceived notions or political ideologies disrupt gaining somebody's perspective. Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, y'all.